The group led by Burning Heaven departed from the 5th layer of the underground palace and made their way towards the 6th, unaware that their every move was already anticipated by the Xinling King. Yet, the Xinling King had other plans brewing in his mind. If he could leverage the forces from the Incense Pavilion to eliminate his father, he would establish his control over the Xinling royal family entirely. Otherwise, as long as his father remained alive, the Xinling King's ambitions would constantly face obstacles. Leaving the 5th layer, Ling Mengxing traveled with Xin Muqing, his beloved, by his side. His spirits were high, teasing her occasionally and drawing gentle laughter from her, which didn't go unnoticed by the group. It was clear that Xin Muqing held a special place in his heart. This 6th layer of the underground palace, there's something peculiar about it, someone murmured as they reached the stairway leading downwards. Unlike the previous entrances, which were mostly radiant portals leading to distinct spatial realms, this 6th layer's entrance was simply an unremarkable wooden door. The door was so plain it seemed devoid of any power. Could it be an ambush? Mu Shuzi muttered, a hint of worry in his voice. The mysteries of the underground palace were notorious, and it was rumored that the deeper one ventured, the greater the treasures. Now, at the 6th layer, caution was inevitable. We should be fine, Xin Muqing said softly. She recalled hearing Xin Yin and Xin Yang mention that something crucial to the Xinling King was stored within this layer. Stay alert. If the information is accurate, Yin Qi should be on the 7th layer. This 6th layer, however, we need to avoid using our full power. If we do, we risk drawing attention from other powerful Do Xian cultivators, and that would jeopardize our entire plan, Burning Heaven advised after a quick assessment. Understood. Leave the 6th layer to us, Ling Mengxing nodded. With his internal conflicts resolved, both his heart and strength had grown immensely. He even felt that the realm of half-step Do Xian was within his grasp. Among the 7 of them, excluding Burning Heaven and Zhu Jin, the remaining 5 had formidable power. Mu Shuzi was at the perfect 8-star Do D stage, while the 2 elders of Heaven and Earth, along with Elder Qing, had all attained the 9-turn realm. Ling Mengxing himself stood at the peak of Do D. With such a formidable team, they had no reason to fear the challenges of the 6th layer. Let's proceed, Ling Mengxing said, leading the way. Burning Heaven and Zhu Jin concealed their presence at the rear as the group cautiously pushed open the wooden door. Creak. Ling Mengxing stepped forward, followed by the others, each passing quietly through the door. Suddenly, an immense, indescribable force sucked them in. The group, prepared for surprises, exchanged a look and allowed themselves to be pulled by this mysterious force, knowing that each layer within the underground palace existed as an independent spatial domain. This door merely served as a conduit to the unknown. Inside the 6th layer, however, lay a strikingly different sight. Well, I wonder who has arrived. On a towering ancient tree, a drowsy elder slowly opened his eyes. The elder, dressed in deep blue robes, had white eyebrows and hair, with a peculiar green glimmer in his pupils. As this mystical green hue emerged in his gaze, the surrounding foliage seemed to respond, trembling with a joyful rhythm. The elder stood atop the massive tree, and about 3 feet away, a small yet lush green tree materialized. While it appeared ordinary, a powerful and soothing green energy encircled its branches and leaves, radiating tranquility. If Xiao Yin were here, he'd recognize it instantly. It was none other than the legendary celestial Bodhi tree itself, said to possess miraculous powers to heal souls and restore one's strength to its peak. What a dense forest! Ling Mengxing's group had barely entered the 6th layer when they found themselves surrounded by a sprawling forest filled with an astonishing variety of trees. In addition, the presence of magical beasts added an air of mystery to this vast woodland. What is that? Elder Qing looked up, his voice tinged with disbelief. Looming above was a colossal tree that seemed to touch the heavens. If this forest were a tapestry, then this towering tree was undoubtedly its centerpiece. Xin Muqing's current strength was at the level of an 8-star Do D, but even she only knew about the first 3 levels of the underground palace. As for the secrets hidden deeper within, the Xinling King had not disclosed those to her. There's a presence in there, one that isn't weak, Fan Tian murmured in a low voice, his gaze intent. A presence that isn't weak? Elder Qing's eyes narrowed slightly upon hearing this. Given Fention's power, currently at the early 2-star Docian stage, if he considered something to be not weak, it meant that the being inside was likely at least a half-step Docian, or possibly even a full Docian. Pavilion Master, you and Zhu Jin should step back for now. We'll likely need your help later with the 7th level of the underground palace, Ling Mingxing advised as he turned to them. That was my thought exactly, Fention replied before he and Zhu Jin vanished from sight. Everyone knew that Zhu Jin had used a formation to cloak their presence temporarily. Even though Fention and Zhu Jin remained nearby, their auras and figures were concealed. Elder Qing, myself, and the 2 elders of heaven and earth will handle this one. Mu Qing, Brother Mu, I'll leave your daughter in your care, Ling Mingxing directed, and then he turned toward Xian Muqing with a smile. Gone was any trace of his usual commanding demeanor. She's always been a point of concern for him. Now that he's found closure, both his strength and his resolve have returned. This man is second in strength only to our pavilion master, Mu Shuzi said quietly as he approached Xian Muqing, smiling. Thank you, Xian Muqing replied, offering him a soft smile. Though Mu Shuzi was only at the perfect 8-star Do D stage, Xian Muqing had a sense that even the combined might of her former protectors, the Xian Yinyang brothers, would struggle against him. And yet, in this group, Mu Shuzi was considered the weakest. Let's move out. It's been ages since I felt my blood stir like this, Ling Mingxing murmured after completing his preparations. Then, with a calm intensity, he led the 3 others toward the colossal tree ahead. Mu Shuzi and Xian Muqing, along with Fention's hidden presence, followed closely from the shadows. It's strange. When we first arrived, the trees around us seemed fragile. But as we go deeper, they're growing more robust and massive, Elder Qing remarked as they advanced toward the towering tree at the forest's center. Moreover, each of these trees seems to hold a significant power within them. Feeling it closely, I'd say that power is on par with that of a 1-star Do D, Elder Tian added as he halted briefly. I noticed it too. These trees aren't ordinary at all. Otherwise, they wouldn't be left here on the 6th level of the underground palace, Ling Mingxing observed, though he didn't dwell on it. After all, they hadn't come here to deal with trees, however formidable. Let's focus on finding the Guardian for now. The 7th level is right ahead of us, Ling Mingxing said with a slight shake of his head. Let's go. With a shared nod, the 4 powerful figures surged forward, quickening their pace as they headed for the colossal tree. Mu Shuzi kept his vigil over Xian Muqing, while Fention and Zhu Jin continued to observe from the shadows, ready to intervene should Ling Mingxing and his companions face any insurmountable challenge. Here we are, one of them murmured as the group finally reached the base of the towering tree. The roots alone are nearly 100 meters thick. This tree must be thousands of years old, Elder Qing observed in awe. In this world, all things possessed a spirit, and if this ancient tree had cultivated sentience, it would undoubtedly be a formidable force in its own right. Yet, despite its vibrance, the tree lacked the spark of intelligence. After all, even for magical beasts, developing intelligence was a rare feat. For a tree, a lower life form, to achieve such a thing would be even more challenging. These roots are enormous, but do you sense it? An invisible barrier encircles the tree, clearly blocking something, Elder D remarked. The 2 elders of heaven and earth were a formidable pair. Elder Tian, a powerhouse, handled external threats, while Elder D, wise and supportive, stood by his side. Together, they could face even peak Do D or half-step Docian foes. An invisible barrier? Ling Mingxing, less attuned to such subtleties, hadn't noticed. Xiaoming, channel your force of life and death into the tree, and you'll see what I mean, Elder D suggested. Considering her age and seniority, it was perfectly natural for Elder D to call Ling Mingxing Xiaoming. Understood. At Elder D's grave expression, Ling Mingxing did not hesitate. With a thought, she gathered her powerful force of life and death into her palm. In her hand, black and white energies wove and danced, embodying the force of life and death itself. Go! Ling Mingxing uttered nonchalantly, as the immense force of life and death gathered in his palm flowed gently toward the roots of the towering ancient tree. Bang, bang, bang. Just as the radiant energy of life and death came within a meter of the massive tree, a dazzling green light flashed across the scene. In an instant, Ling Mengxing's seemingly overwhelming attack was repelled, sent flying uncontrollably through the forest before exploding violently in the distance. As expected, something's off. Ling Mengxing and Elder Qing immediately grew alert. This ancient tree was clearly not as simple as they had initially thought. This must be the tree's self-protective mechanism. After all, it's been absorbing the most potent energies within this space. It's only natural that it has this kind of defense, Elder D remarked with a shrug. How do we get past it, Elder D? Ling Mengxing asked, sensing that Elder D had some way of handling this situation. Without breaking through the green barrier, entering the heart of the tree would be impossible. And if they couldn't ascend the tree, they'd never reach the 6th level of the underground palace, where the guardian awaited. That's easy, Elder D said confidently, glancing over at Elder Tian. Let's finish this quickly, Elder Tian replied with a steady voice. The two elders locked the fingers of their left hands together, merging their auras into one. Boom, boom, boom. Though the two did nothing out of the ordinary, their right hands gently touched the green barrier surrounding the ancient tree. Swoosh, swoosh. Green energy surged from their bodies, matching the hue of the barrier exactly. Waves of invisible ripples radiated outward as their combined energy fused with the trees. In no time, the mysterious barrier dissolved without a trace. As the barrier vanished, waves of green energy rippled outward from the ancient tree, spreading through the entire forest. At the tree's summit, a mysterious old man chuckled softly. 49 turn do dis, is it? When I promised the Xianling King I'd guard this place, I planned to consume this treasure myself. But who would have thought the Xianling King was so cunning? That sly fox must have known from the beginning that the mother tree of the celestial Bodhi tree isn't so easily devoured. What a miscalculation on my part. I've spent all these years pondering in vain. The old man grinned, a hint of malevolence flashing across his face. But today, they've finally come. This time, I'll make sure everyone knows the name Dongxian. His voice carried both amusement and menace, and his aura unmistakably marked him as a true Do Xian. It's done, Elder Tian and Elder D said in unison as they retracted their hands. Impressive, seniors. Elder Qing praised sincerely. Yet, he wasn't surprised. The two elders' unique power made them adept at dealing with such unconventional forces. Let's go, Ling Mengxing said, his gaze shifting toward the tree's summit. He could sense a powerful presence lurking there, the guardian of the 6th level. It had been waiting for them for a long time. Be cautious. If anything goes wrong, we retreat immediately, Ling Mengxing added firmly. Don't worry. You have us old folks, Zhu Jin whispered to him telepathically. Relax, I won't act recklessly. After all, Ling Mengxing smiled faintly. I've got a family now. He stretched the final word playfully, clearly speaking for Xian Muqing to hear. That guy always plays the hero. Xian Muqing smiled softly, a gentle expression on her beautiful face. But once this business with the mystic 3 heavens is over, I'll make him retire with me. No excuses. Swoosh, swoosh. The 4 of them stepped into the ancient tree in unison, swiftly ascending toward the summit. Don't go in. If we follow them, we'll expose ourselves, Mu Shuzi whispered urgently, grabbing Xian Muqing's arm just as she was about to step inside. All right, Xian Muqing sighed, reluctantly withdrawing. Meanwhile, under the concealment of Zhu Jin's special formation, both he and Fantian seemed to vanish entirely, leaving no trace of their presence as they stood silently beside Xian Muqing and Mu Shuzi, awaiting Ling Mengxing's success. Is that stairs? Ling Mengxing and the others had barely entered the ancient tree when they realized that the interior was far more extraordinary than they had imagined. From the outside, it had seemed like nothing more than a massive tree root, stretching hundreds of meters tall. Before the 4 of them lay a vast, open space. A massive, spiraling staircase formed entirely of green leaves stretched out into the distance. For some reason, Ling Mingxing had the strange feeling that all of this was deliberately set up by whatever creature lived at the top of this ancient tree. It appears the inside of this tree is a sealed-off space, Elder Tian observed, breaking the silence. Ling Mingxing glanced around the 100-meter-high cavern. Besides the towering green spiral staircase, there was nothing else in sight, which filled them with an unsettling emptiness. Let's move. As a peaked Dodi, Ling Mingxing led them forward, undeterred by the danger looming in this place. Just as he took a step, a vine as thick as an arm shot out from the staircase, lashing straight at Ling Mingxing's limbs, intending to ensnare him and halt his advance. An enemy. Ling Mingxing had been on high alert since entering the tree, anticipating attacks from the hidden guardian. The moment the vine lunged, he deftly twisted aside, narrowly avoiding it. Flaming blade hand. He retaliated instantly, his palms surging with the force of life and death, transforming his hand into a razor-sharp blade of fire. Thunk, thunk, thunk. He turned and struck, slicing the vine in two with the flaming blade. A swift attack. Elder Qing, bringing up the rear, observed the whole encounter. The vine had appeared so silently with no warning, a move meant to be impossible to guard against. The vine's seemingly simple attack had actually carried a deadly intent. If Ling Mingxing had reacted a split second slower, it could have dealt him serious injury. Any discoveries? Ling Mingxing asked, turning to the others after severing the vine. It's likely. This whole space belongs to whoever's up there, said one of the two elders of heaven and earth, their faces darkening as they shared their suspicion. Then it seems our opponent is a true Do Xian, Ling Mingxing muttered, undeterred. Instead, he felt his blood heat with excitement. Once a prodigy of the incense pavilion, he had been held back for 2 decades by the heartache over his wife's rumored death. But even without progressing to Do Xian, his talent had never waned. Now, facing a Do Xian, he felt a fierce anticipation. After all, only through battle could he break his limits. Then let's go all in, Elder Qing agreed, refusing to back down. Although he was not yet at peak Do Di, he had confidence he could hold his ground even against a Do Xian, especially with Ling Mingxing and the 2 elders by his side. Battle was never meant to be faced alone. Oh! Atop the ancient tree, Dong Xian observed them with amusement as he manipulated his powers. The vine that had attacked Ling Mingxing was none other than his doing. This tree was, in a way, his domain. Dong Xian, still at the early 1-star Do Xian stage, lacked the strength to fully establish a Do Xian domain. Yet, within the confines of this ancient tree, he could amplify his power while suppressing his opponents, ensuring his victory. All right, let's have some fun, Dong Xian chuckled, withdrawing his power and casting a glance at the mother of the celestial Bodhi tree. Slowly, he began to descend toward his challengers. The attack stopped. The constant onslaught ceased, leaving Ling Mingxing momentarily off guard. Shortly after, the 4 realized the barrage had indeed halted. That presence, it's coming down, Ling Mingxing said gravely, his expression tightening. Gurgle! A strange noise resonated as the slowly undulating space suddenly shattered, revealing an elderly man with flowing white hair within. It really is a Do Xian, Ling Mingxing murmured, feeling the immense, abyssal power emanating from the elder before him. Though he smiled faintly, a hidden glint of killing intent surfaced beneath his calm demeanor. I am a consecrated elder of the Xinling royal family, the old man stated. My name is Dong Xian, and I oversee the 6th level of the underground palace. May I ask the purpose of your visit? His tone suggested he knew the answer already. There's no need to ask, Ling Mingxing replied confidently. We came here because word has it that Dong Xian's strength is extraordinary. We came to test that claim. His words carried a formidable aura that matched that of a true Do Xian. Who might you be? Dong Xian inquired, his demeanor calm, brimming with confidence in his own power. Listen well, Ling Mingxing declared, his eyes ablaze with uncontainable battle spirit. I am the Lord of the Earth Hall of the Incense Pavilion, Ling Mingxing. Oh! Dong Xian's previously placid expression darkened. So, you're with the Incense Pavilion. The Xinling King has decreed that any incense pavilion members encountered are to be killed on sight. A chilling, murderous intent filled Dong Xian's gaze, signaling an imminent clash between two equals. In that case, let's fight. Ling Mingxing laughed heartily, showing not the slightest trace of fear toward Dong Xian. Dong Xian was a formidable Docian of early one-star rank, brought in at a high price by the Xinling royal family. However, Ling Mingxing's strength at the peak of Do Di, combined with his three allies, left them unfazed by the threat Dong Xian posed alone. "Shall I intervene?" Bamboo Ember, hidden within the array, whispered to Finchen, sensing Dong Xian's strength at the ancient tree's peak. As a half-step Docian himself, Bamboo Ember was acutely aware of the vast chasm separating a half-step Docian from a true Docian, hence his concern. "No need for now," Finchen replied, shaking his head. "Dong Xian may be a Docian, but he's only an early one-star. This battle marks Ling Mingxing's first since overcoming his inner demons. It's crucial for him. Yet, Dong Xian isn't to be taken lightly," Bamboo Ember voiced his worry. "With wood affinity Do Qi, and in a forest no less, he's at a significant advantage." "Growth often demands challenge," Finchen countered with a grin. "Ling Mingxing has been stuck at the peak of Do Di for decades. Plus, don't forget, fire counters wood." "You mean?" Bamboo Ember's eyes lit up, catching Finchen's hint. "If the incense pavilion gained another Docian, they might well be unstoppable among the top sects." "Just watch," Finchen said, and they fell silent, awaiting the battle brewing within the ancient tree. "Whatever grudge the Xinling King holds against your incense pavilion, I'm merely paid to do a job. If you find yourselves in the underworld soon, remember, it's nothing personal," Dong Xian sneered, his gaze turning sinister as he looked at Ling Mingxing's group. Not being from the Xinling continent, Dong Xian was ignorant of the incense pavilion's might. However, the Xinling King's promise to reward him handsomely for every incense pavilion member slain was enough to entice him. Now, with 4 high-ranking pavilion members, one at the peak of Do Di, the rewards for eliminating them could be unimaginable. "Attack!" Ling Mingxing shouted, knowing there was no point in holding back against this opponent. His first move was a lethal strike. "This is my domain. Prepare to fall." Dong Xian raised his hand, and a torrent of energy converged into an enormous sky-reaching tree, hurling itself toward Ling Mingxing. Such powerful force, a true Docian indeed. Ling Mingxing muttered, but his hands moved swiftly, gathering a blindingly radiant force of life and death in his palm, which he hurled at Dong Xian's towering tree form. Boom, boom, boom. The clash of energies filled the ancient tree's hollow with explosive echoes, fragments of wood raining down as the mighty forces collided. "Qinger, buy us some time." The 2 elders of heaven and earth knew Ling Mingxing couldn't hold out indefinitely and urgently called out. As Elder Qing set up a defensive stance, the 2 elders of heaven and earth calmly seated themselves cross-legged on the green steps. With their palms facing each other, they began a mysterious ritual. Though unclear what they were doing, an eerie energy slowly blended between them. "Not bad, kid. This is interesting," Dong Xian remarked with a glint of amusement as he eyed Ling Mingxing. Ling Mingxing wiped a trace of blood from his mouth, his eyes sharpening as he stared down Dong Xian warily. "So, he's as powerful as I expected. Celestial Mystic Wood Hand." Dong Xian was the first to strike. As his words fell, a massive hand, radiant and spanning dozens of meters, materialized in front of him. Runes spiraled around the hand, imbuing it with a terrifying power. Seeing this, Ling Mingxing drew in a sharp breath. 3 heavens flame palm. He braced himself as his entire body surged with the force of life and death, black and white energies swirling across his form. In response, a giant black and white hand, equally as large, took shape in front of him. The appearance of Ling Mingxing's hand caused the entire inner space of the ancient tree to tremble. He knew that the spatial restrictions here dampened their powers. Otherwise, his attack would stretch hundreds of meters. "An ant will always be an ant," Dong Xian sneered. Though Ling Mingxing's display of power was impressive, it was still unworthy of his full attention as one at the peak of Do Di. "It's over." Hovering above, Dong Xian pointed a finger toward Ling Mingxing, unleashing a fearsome strike that seemed to pierce through the very heavens, aimed directly at him. Ling Mingxing, rather than retreating, took a bold step forward. Bring it on. He launched his shimmering black and white hand, meeting Dong Xian's attack head-on. As their attacks collided, an overwhelming explosion rocked the space, and waves of energy rippled outward with such force that even a perfect 8-star Do D could be wiped out by the aftershocks. No wonder he's a Do Xian, Ling Mingxing thought, his eyes fixed on the intertwined strikes. Soon, as he anticipated, his attack began to falter against Dong Xian's. Take another strike. Bold as ever, Ling Mingxing prepared his next move without hesitation, unwilling to wait until his initial attack failed. With a shimmer in the surrounding space, Ling Mingxing suddenly vanished. Huh. Dong Xian was briefly taken aback, but realization dawned on him moments later. You old dog. Die, came a voice, dripping with arrogance, as Ling Mingxing appeared just 3 meters away from Dong Xian. In his hand danced a tiny crimson flame, delicate like a spirit, yet the deadly aura it emitted was undeniable. Is that the sacred flameseed fire? Dong Xian's eyes narrowed, a seriousness overtaking his expression. A brilliant, dark green aura gathered around him as he clashed with Ling Mingxing's sacred flameseed fire, creating a stunning spectacle within the ancient tree's confines. How does this guy have the power of the sacred flameseed fire? Dong Xian was stunned. That flame was one of the rewards the Xianling King had promised him. Yet here it was, wielded by Ling Mingxing, and Dong Xian could not afford to linger. He channeled his Do Xian power, his face showing a rare hint of worry. In the hands of warriors of their caliber, the power of the sacred flame could easily unleash world-destroying forces. Even the sacred flame seed fire, with its devastating destructive force, was leagues above ordinary weapons. For the first time, Dong Xian's expression changed from disdain to solemn respect. Ling Mingxing's sacred flameseed fire had forced him to get serious. This guy, he's even tapping into Do Xian power. He must truly fear Ling Mingxing's sacred flameseed fire. Bamboo Jean chuckled. But Chief, when did Ling Mingxing acquire the sacred flameseed fire? Even I didn't know about this, another chuckled. He's had it for a long time, answered Finchen. He just never used it until now. With the sacred flame seed fire amplifying his strength, Ling Mingxing might indeed stand a fighting chance against Dong Xian. Boom! Ling Mingxing's hand, devoid of any other technique, was simply engulfed in the sacred flame seed fire. Meanwhile, Dong Xian was well aware that the sacred flame seed fire was no trivial matter, so he dared not be careless. He quickly set aside his earlier contempt, channeling his Do Xian power to form dazzling rays of light in front of his body, enveloping himself in protection. A Do D expert possesses the power of life within, and when they cultivate the power of death, the fusion of life and death leads to the realm of 9-turn 9-star Do D. For a Do Xian, however, the force within their body has long transformed into a power far more terrifying than the force of life and death, Do Xian power. Compared to the force of life and death, the strength of Do Xian power was incomparably superior. Boom, boom, boom. As Ling Mingxing's fist struck Dong Xian, they were blocked by the Do Xian power emanating from his silver robe. Yet, everyone noticed that there was an exceptionally sturdy layer of defense on the robe. Even so, under the terrifying assault from Ling Mingxing, that solid defense began to crack, making faint sounds like shattering glass. Damn it! Do Xian power is truly formidable, Ling Mingxing muttered as he withdrew, seeing the greenish-silver glow on Dong Xian's robe. The sacred flame's might was great, but Do Xian power was certainly not to be underestimated. I must admit, you're quite strong. But I'm curious, how did you come by the sacred flameseed fire? Dong Xian's tone seemed casual as he intercepted Ling Mingxing's attacks, but in truth, it wasn't that simple. If Ling Mingxing had a true sacred flame or the strength of a half-step Do Xian, that attack would have been enough to severely injure him. Watching Ling Mingxing back off, Dong Xian spoke with a rare calmness. It seems trying to challenge a true Do Xian with peak Do D power is still a bit too much. Ling Mingxing smiled slightly. Though Dong Xian seemed to have the upper hand, he knew that his opponent didn't emerge unscathed. Blood slowly trickled from Ling Mingxing's fist, proof that breaching that defense was no easy task. "How about you hand over your sacred flameseed fire? I guarantee your survival," Dong Xian said, a glint of greed flashing in his eyes. His gaze locked onto Ling Mingxing, heating up with intensity. If he could obtain even a sliver of the sacred flameseed fire, he was confident he could break through to the early one-star Do Xian stage. At that point, even the Xinling royal family would treat him with more respect, as the gap between each level of Do Xian was like an insurmountable chasm. Not a chance. If you want the sacred flame seed fire in me, you'd better worry about yourself first. Ling Mingxing replied, darting toward the ancient tree below. Stubborn fool. Dong Xian sneered, without turning back. But in the next moment, Dong Xian's senses detected an immense force from beneath the ancient tree. The energy carried a powerful sealing aura, enough to make even a Do Xian like him shiver. These old fools, when did they prepare something like this? Dong Xian had been preoccupied with Ling Mingxing and had forgotten there were 4 of them, not just one. Realizing the gravity of the situation, he saw the other 3 appear within his line of sight. Ling Mingxing rejoined the other 3, among whom one was weaker, but the 2 elders were seated cross-legged. From their bodies, the radiant power of life and death intermingled, generating a golden energy that surged like an awakening dragon, emanating a daunting presence. No, this isn't good. Do skill fusion? Dong Xian's expression twisted with alarm. He knew all too well that if the golden energy from those 2 elders materialized, even he would be in serious trouble. Without hesitation, he raised his hand, summoning a greenish Do Xian power strong enough to annihilate all 4 of them, then swiftly charged toward them. As Dong Xian's terrifying attack descended, Ling Mingxing and Elder Qing felt a tremendous pressure bearing down on them. They exchanged a glance, preparing to intercept, but the 2 elders of heaven and earth intervened. "Leave it to us," the faint voice of the elders echoed in Ling Mingxing and Elder Qing's ears. Before they could react, the golden energy around the 2 elders of heaven and earth solidified, and under their precise control, it surged toward Dong Xian, surrounding him entirely. Swish, swish. "You damn fools. Go to hell." Mystic heaven bone-shattering palm. As Dong Xian closed within meters of the 2 elders, his hand surged with a terrifying surge of power, his eyes brimming with killing intent. With a single palm strike, the formidable Do Xian power erupted, causing the entire area around the ancient tree to tremble violently. Golden Bell Heavenly King Seal. The 2 elders of heaven and earth, unflinching in the face of Dong Xian's formidable onslaught, uttered a low, deliberate roar. As their voices echoed, a golden energy surged from them, the force of life and death coalescing visibly into a massive, ancient golden bell. Mystic golden runes circled the surface of the bell, radiating an aura of profound mystery. Its presence alone brought an instant hush to the violently disrupted space around them. A calm moment before it surged forward, descending directly upon Dong Xian. Golden Bell Heavenly King Seal. "Suppress him," the 2 elders shouted, as waves of sealing power poured from within the golden bell, aiming to lock Dong Xian in place. Mystic heaven bone-shattering palm. "Break for me." Dong Xian's eyes flashed with a hint of madness. At this stage, any retreat would mean succumbing to the relentless corrosive energy between them. So, there was no choice but to risk it all.